My name is Kristi Lodge. I'm the Graduate Career Advisor in More Career Services, and I have with me today Roger Busse. Roger is the former CEO of Pacific Continental Bank. He's also an author, a speaker, and a teacher with an interest in ethics. And today, Roger and I are going to have a conversation about careers in finance, getting started, and some tips. Roger, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, Kristi. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I've been looking forward to this.
I would love it if you would tell us briefly about your career path, and especially because of students here. How did your first job out of college help you in your next career moves?
Okay, wonderful. Well, great question. I had to work my way through college. I went to Reed, and so I needed money. And so one of the things I did to build a career path was to get a job at a financial institution at an entry-level position as a teller. And so that provided me an entry point into the business where I could get to know people, get to know the culture, and work my way up, if you will, over time. So when I graduated from Reed College, I had developed enough contacts inside. Reputation is worth its weight in gold. I had a good reputation for hardworking, mastering my job, and doing it thoroughly, and being on time, all the critical things. But I had good recommendations. So that entry point into their culture and familiarity gave me an opportunity to get into the management training program upon my graduation from Reed. And so from there, I progressed through various jobs. I always took the most difficult jobs, to be honest, the ones that a lot of people didn't want. I was willing to move if I needed to move with my career early on as well. And I got promoted fairly quickly through the ranks into the credit world and then into overseeing credit, and went to, primarily with US Bank for 25 years, going from a teller to head of credit administration and head of risk for the entire US Bank Corps. And then became a chief credit officer and became a president of the bank. And so you can see that this career path was all about developing a early entry point with a good, solid reputation for mastering my job. And that was the key. University of Oregon graduates are going to have a very nice calling card.
I want to follow up on that. Thank you, Roger. Two things I want to follow up on is when you said that you deliberately took on the most difficult jobs. And yeah, that is a bit of taking a risk. So can you tell us a little bit more about why that's a risk worth taking?
Sure. So I'll give you an example. My first job was, I was looking for, they had a combination job at that time where you had to move. And the combination jobs did two things. You were taking on a difficult task where you had an area that was a challenge. So my first assignment was to go to Myrtle Creek, Oregon, which is a wonderful town, but it was distant from everything I knew and understood. And if I went there and I did well, after a couple of years, I would be made an officer in the bank, which was about 3 years faster than any other career path. So that was a risk. I went down to work in a place, in a community I had no idea what it was like. I had to get involved in the community like I never thought I would. I was a volunteer fireman. I had to get to know people on a very personal level. It developed my character and skills. And the difficult tasks sometimes can be the most challenging with developing those skills. For example, when I went down there, it was the height of a recession. And we had very, very poor economic situation. A lot of businesses were failing. But that's where I learned about people, about character, and about trying to make things happen and work for people in trouble in a community that was really suffering. So sometimes the most difficult tasks are the very best, and those challenges that you take, you get rewarded by your institution for taking those on. So that's just one example. Running loan centers, taking on areas that were troubled and correcting them and turning them into really productive and earning departments. Those were other things that I did. And I always had an interest in training and developing people, which sometimes was a challenge as well. So mentoring was a big part of my job and what I wanted to do. So not everything is a straight path. You have to be able to jump around and take those tasks and be able to raise your hand. And I would highly recommend it, particularly if you have the support. You're not being thrown to the wolves, but you know you have the support of management. They have your back for taking on this task.
So speaking of recession and unprecedented things going on, what obstacles do you perceive that employers in the financial service industry, finance industry, will face in recovering?
Yeah. Well, this is definitely the most, I've been through many cycles. I can tell you that in this particular cycle, it's been devastating to a lot of businesses, particularly community-based businesses. So larger companies that have been able to survive and weather this storm, and those that receive some PPP funding, for example, those companies are going to take some time to retrench and reestablish. And as a result, right now, the job market is very tough. There's a lot of companies that have gone through reductions in forces right now and also are not hiring. They're using attrition to reduce expenses. And so I would say that the challenges for graduates and other business students right now is to really find an entry point. And the way to do that is to get to know contacts of people that might be of help to you. Do your networking. Get names of people that you can get to know. Go to lunch with them. And find ways that they're willing to let you use their name and also, I guess, their support to get you into an entry-level position. But just be consistent in your approach to finding that entry point into a business that you respect and want to work for.
Thank you, because I think that ties into my next question. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about that, because I think it can be overwhelming when you hear people aren't hiring right now. Yeah. How can I still put myself out there, or what's the best way, or what do I need to be thinking about in order to network well?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think these types of programs that the university provides have been the most beneficial to a lot of the students that I've worked with. Get to know your professors. Get to know the people at the college and business school that really have contacts in the community, and spend time being clear with your interest so that they can help you understand who to talk to. You'd be amazed at how many people are really willing to take calls and talk to you as you begin your career search. I can't tell you, dozens of calls from students who were interested in a finance career. I gladly took those. And there are many CEOs and many other managers who are willing to talk to you. So I think you've just got to develop the networking skills by opening up and being willing to take the risk to get on the phone. They have this new invention. It's called a telephone. It dials out. Use it and make those connections. But get to know your professors too. I would also lastly recommend that you attend community events, you attend speeches and organizations. For example, the Oregon Bankers Association has functions. So do many industries that you can attend as a guest, and for students for free. Go and network at those events. Or if you go to the Robert Morris Associates, now called Risk Management Associates, banking meetings in each of your communities, you'll get to know directly bankers and get to know them. And there'll be excellent calling cards for you into a variety of businesses, even if it's not banking. They know a lot of businesses and nonprofits. So those are some suggestions I would make right now.
But what are other prep work that students can do before they jump online and start submitting those resumes to employers?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And I just want to emphasize, I can't emphasize this strongly enough. Do your homework before you get into an interview. And by that, I mean, I've been in so many interviews, even with professionals, who didn't take the time to look up the company's website and look at what their interests were, what their focal areas are, who their leadership is, and particularly read their biographies. You may find a connection that you never knew existed until you read that biography. Maybe the same school, maybe people you know, maybe organizations they work for or work with in the community. It's absolutely critical for you to spend time looking up their website and getting to know the company. That's absolutely critical in your preparation. I've been in multiple meetings where people didn't even know what our bank did, what our focal areas were. It was a huge miss in the first 10 to 15 seconds of the meeting. They didn't even understand who we were. So understand who the company is. Now, when I talk about biographies, I also want to stress something very important. You're not looking for research that is ancillary. You're looking for getting a comfort level that'll give you confidence. Sometimes when you read somebody's biography, you see into them. You see their insights and interests. And that helps you build confidence during the interview. If you seem to know or sense something about somebody, their character or who they are, you've got something to talk about. And that's very important. So confidence becomes critical in your preparation by doing this background research, both about the company, about the people, and try and make mental connections with the individuals you'll be talking to. And that includes the interviewers that you may be talking to. Lastly, I would say, look for news articles. Read recent awards, publications, recognition the company's received. Talk about those things. Those give you connections too, because people are proud of where they work. Remember, people don't want a job. They want a mission. They want a calling, if you will. And if you can reach out and find what that is, you'll make an instant connection with people that'll give you an insight into those discussions.
When you're reviewing someone's resume and their cover letter that they've sent you when they've applied for a role, what do you look for, or what are ways that a candidate can make a connection even in the resume and cover letter before they get to the interview?
Most important is linking the accomplishments that you've had with the kind of things the company does and is looking for. That's really important. So with your resume, you want to make sure that your introductory statement, if you have one, there's various styles, but I see many that have an introductory statement about your goal. Take time to try and link that goal and tailor it to the company's strategic plan, mission, what they do, and tell them how you're going to fit. It's very important for you to make that connection by emphasizing that you want to work for this company because. It's almost like an elevator story. Your resume then should resonate with the kind of things you want to punctuate that show them why you're a good fit in their company. Now, I want to speak quickly about the resume. The resume needs to really have some personal insight in it about you, not just your things that match with what they want. For example, when I sent my resume in starting out, I emphasized the fact that I understood the company and why it's important to me to work for them and how I would fit. That was the first paragraph. But then I listed the skills that I had, whether it was cash handling, accounting, the kind of things that I like to do, customer contact, building teams, a lot of things that were reflected in their information. And then I showed the specific jobs that I did and how those fit. Now, where you don't have jobs that fit, it's okay. But remember, try and tie those jobs and why they were helpful to you with what the company's looking for. Leadership skills, problem resolution. Were you a referee at one time? In sports, what did you accomplish? If you were an Eagle Scout, that has a calling card. Just remember that all the little things about you might actually match well in a resume with what they're looking for, not just job skills, but about who you are as an individual. So you want to put in the keywords, yes, but show them a little insight about you. So you'll have something to talk about. And if you can connect it with who you're interviewing or their biography, even better.
Great. So I really like the point you're making, Roger. So even if a student is saying, well, I have experience as a referee or I have experience as a barista, there are ways that they can think about how that experience has developed skills
Yes.
that are relevant to the
Yes.
organization.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. It's critically important.
So to come back to this idea of interview preparation, you've really touched on the idea that people should prepare, they should research, they should understand the organization and what it's about. Are there other things that students can do to prepare for an interview, especially if they don't have a lot of experience interviewing previously?
Yes. I would highly recommend you get on a Zoom or an online system of some type and practice with friends.
Yeah.
It's really important that you do some basics. Background, and this is really critical, eye contact. I am in multiple interviews with people online, on Zoom, etc., and they are looking at themselves. They're not looking at the people they're talking to or looking away in the distance. So your background is really important. Dress like you would it going to the job. That's very important. And eye contact is very critical, which shows confidence again, by the way. So preparation becomes very important, but those key things and really having the system up and running before the time of your interview, making sure it's working well, and then practicing with people to show how you look. Do you show your enthusiasm and confidence, and get some tips, take feedback. Those kind of practice sessions become very important. And I think the three keys on any job that they're going to want to hear about is something that somebody told me in my very, very first job. You want to always be on time or early if you can. Mm-hmm. You want to master your job. You never want to look 2 steps down the road and be always looking for that other job. If you do that, people are never going to see you as dedicated. Mm-hmm. Master your job, because then you will be asked to do other things. And lastly, if you run out of things to do, ask to help. Ask to learn something else. Ask if somebody needs help. Those 3 things made the difference in my career, and they were told to me my very first supervisor, Roger, if you do these 3 things, you'll do great in whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, that sounds like excellent advice for that last question, which was, what can people, once they start their job, what can they do to be successful?
Yeah. Well, you never, I think you never want to hesitate in expressing your interest in a career path. It's okay to say you want a career path. And you never want to shy away from opportunities that you think might challenge you. I can tell you from personal experience, I work with very talented people, men and women, and especially those who had the talent to move ahead that were afraid to do so. They were in comfortable positions. I would suggest that as soon as you get into a comfortable position, you ask yourself, am I too comfortable? Is it time for me to challenge myself to do something else? But when you're early in your career, there's an opportunity for you to, when you're comfortable, start thinking about the next step and talking to people about what that should be. Don't be afraid. Start those conversations, do them constructively, and explore. Many companies today ask you to develop a career path, a career plan. Take advantage of that. Talk to people in other areas of the institution and see what they say about how to get there. Those are some suggestions.
Before we wrap up our conversation, I'm wondering if there's any final tips you would like to leave or final suggestions for students today.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I wish all of you very well. You're in a great institution. Your learning environment there is just outstanding, and you have wonderful professors. University of Oregon is a calling card, and it is all over, and not just here in Oregon, but all over. The business school and the faculty really are highly respected, and so congratulations on being part of this. Suggestions. I wouldn't get discouraged right now. I would be optimistic. There's lots of opportunities out there for people who are go-getters. The people that are willing to reach out and take a chance and meet people, to network, to put their names out there, to really be somewhat assertive, not aggressive, assertive with meeting with people and going to meetings. You're going to do well if you follow the advice of the things that I shared with you today in your preparation work and also in how you behave consistently in every situation. And once again, remember that that meeting is not the end of anything. Every meeting is a beginning. Every meeting is a chance to show who you are and develop relationships and connections. And so with that, I would just say, once again, thank you for the opportunity.